Welcome to another episode of the Raw Gypsy Not Quite Hippie podcast. My name is Trey Byerjan, and today I'll be interviewing the one and only... Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Raw Gypsy Not Quite Hippie podcast. Today I am super blessed and super honored to have Dr. Brooke Goldner in the house. How in the world are you, young lady?
Young lady, that's awesome. I'm doing great. I feel young. Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks. How are you doing today?
I am doing super wonderful. Getting to talk to you. I'm a huge admirer of you and Thomas and the job that you guys do. You can't comprehend how much I've been waiting for this moment. Matter of fact, just kind of a side note, almost every video that I post, whether I'm making smoothies or talking about what I eat, your name always is one of the first that comes out of my mouth. Is Dr. Brooke Goldner says this. Dr. Brooke Goldner, this is, so I'm a huge admirer.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, before we get started, I do a little thing called the hot seat. And that's where I get to ask you just 4 random questions, and you answer them to the best of your ability as fast as you can, right off the top of your noggin. Doesn't have anything to do with the podcast, just some, some icebreakers. Okay. Number 1, what is one thing that you do really badly, but you still love to do?
Oh, something I do badly, but I love to do, probably drive.
To the detriment of poor Thomas?
Oh yeah, he holds on tightly when I'm in charge. Yeah.
That is too funny.
I mostly just get lost really easily. I have no sense of direction. Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. My wife Angie, we were watching a movie last night, and it was kind of an end of the world movie. And they, of course, the phones and the GPSs were all, they're out of whack. They're not working anymore. So she looked at me. She said, "You know what? We need to go buy an atlas." And I said, "You're right. That's a good point."
I used to drive around with books of maps in my cars before we had GPS because I have no sense of direction, and I would have to sit there and figure out what direction I was pointing. And yeah, but now that I have GPS on my phone, I actually am worse because I don't have to learn directions anymore. So yeah, it's only enabled me to be equally as bad at figuring out where I am at any given time. So
that's all those phones are good for. They just help you to forget phone numbers and directions. So number 2, whom from your past do you really wish that you would have stayed in contact with?
Somebody I've lost contact with that I wish I'd stayed in contact with. I have a buddy in medical school that was, he helped me stay sane during medical school. We were both kind of people who came from working class families. My parents had a pizza business. His parents had like a garage business, but most of the people we were in school with were multi-generation doctors, and and he was just super laid back. And we just, we made each other laugh, and he was just a really good anchor. And I totally lost contact with him. Don't have his number. He's not on social media. So, yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah. One of these days we'll run into each other again.
A good yin and a yang, because I know you're high speed. You're very passionate. And you said he was kind of laid back. So y'all.
I actually am very laid back. It depends on what you mean. I'm very passionate, and I tend to be maybe hyper, but very easygoing. Like, I don't stress about things. I don't worry about things. I like to take things in stride. I don't like drama. And so that was, everyone else would just, "Oh my God, there's a test. Everybody freak out." And we'd be like, "Yeah, there's always tests. We're in medical school. Let's just go with it."
Right.
Let's not go crazy. So I mean it that way. So I see what you mean. And maybe I don't come across as easygoing, but I really am. I'm very laid back in terms of, it's very hard to ruffle me. I tend to just be pretty even mood, even keel. Yeah.
That's good. Well, cool. Number 3, if you could paint a picture or a scene, a picture from any scene from your past, what picture would you paint?
A picture of any scene. I would love to paint a picture of, there was this one moment when I married my soulmate, Thomas, and we were on the beach, and we were totally broke. I was in medical school. He left his entire career behind to drive cross country and move in with me in California. He went to see about a girl. He saw Good Will Hunting. And so we were just starting over in our lives from scratch, and we eloped to Maui. We just invited some of our best friends, you know, but there was literally 13 people, including us. And we didn't have money to have anything extravagant. So I rented someone's backyard in Maui for $150. And it was perfect. And we went onto the beach from the backyard. And there was a moment where he was just holding me, and we were looking out into the water. And I just realized as long as we had each other, we had everything. And I still see it in my head all the time. So I painted it there. And yes, I still can't. We've been together 15 years. I still cry.
We'll get into Mr. Thomas later and what he means to you, but I love listening to you talk about him. It melts my heart every time you bring him up. It's absolutely one of my favorite things in the world to listen to you talk about. So.
Well, thanks. He's my favorite person in the world. He's an amazing human. Love to share him with the world as much as I can.
He is that. Number 4 is a would you rather question. Would you rather be forced to dance every time you hear music or sing out loud every time you hear a song?
I already do both of those things.
I remember seeing you on the cruise. We shared a cruise together. Y'all were there at the same time we were, and you were definitely out there with them dancing it up. It was.
I dance every time I hear music, much to the chagrin of my kids if it's in the supermarket, and sing out loud wherever I am, always. I've just always done those things. So I guess either one of those would be perfectly fine by me. I don't feel forced in any way. I just feel a lot of joy whenever I hear music. It's something I inherited from my grandmother. So
I do too. I sing, unfortunately, to the chagrin of my my mother-in-law, who has passed just recently. Every time Neil Diamond would come on, especially Sweet Caroline, oh, I was belting it. It was ugly.
Good. It connects with your spirit.
Oh yeah.
That was one of the greatest lessons I learned from my grandmother. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And my mom came with her family on a boat through Ellis Island back in the day. And so I'm first generation born here in the States. And so growing up with grandparents who survived World War II, I mean, imprisoned, starving through the war, you know, they were incredible people, and they helped take care of me because back then, you know, my mom, they couldn't afford daycare or anything like that. My grandmother took care of me when my parents worked. And they were the most positive people I've ever met, which most of their friends were very negative and depressed who'd survived the Holocaust. They were, you know, they were never the same, obviously. But most of them were very bitter. But my grandparents were very happy people. And my grandmother used to always tell me I'm a lucky girl, even until she, you know, she just died last year in 99. I'm a lucky girl. Not many people who survived the Holocaust say that, but she truly felt it with all her heart that she was lucky. She had a beautiful family. She had love in her life. And she had told me this story that really resonated with me, and I love to share it because there's so many folks who are going through difficult times, right? I mean, I don't know anyone who's never had something go wrong. And if you can imagine the worst thing that could ever go wrong, it would be having to live through the Holocaust, not knowing if your family's dead or alive, you know, being in a concentration camp, you know, starving. You know, there's nothing there. That's on the next level from those of us who, like, I only had chronic disease compared to what my grandparents went through. I went through something small, right? So at the end of the war, if you can imagine just what they went through. So they actually were in a labor camp in Siberia because they tried to escape into Russia, and Russia put them in the camp in Siberia. So it wasn't a concentration camp, but they were still starving in forced labor, you know. So they after the war ended, there was agreement that they were going to send all the prisoners of war home. So my grandparents were sent, like, with no further ado, sent to a train station to take a train back to Poland, home. Now, they don't know if there's a home to go back to. They don't know if their family's alive. They ran away while the Nazis were invading. My grandmother's father was very smart, and he had a feeling of what was coming, and he told them to run away. Right. So they don't know what they're coming home to. And I mean, my grandmother said their bellies were swollen from starvation. My grandfather almost died multiple times from infections and things. So they're barely humans. And I always picture the scene in the train station of this crowd of people who are barely alive, swollen, exhausted, depressed, right? Waiting for a train back to where they came from, not knowing where they're going to. And so I always imagine this scene. And my grandmother says they're standing there waiting for the train. And somewhere in the train station, someone starts playing music. And she said she heard the music and she just started dancing. Now, first of all, that's my grandmother. But I remember asking her, you know, I was a kid, and I said, Grandma, how did you start dancing? I mean, you're exhausted, you're hungry. And she said, because Brooksy, when you hear music, you dance.
That's beautiful.
And that's who she was. She always lived in the moment. She never held on to the negativity and the dark moments. She would be in the moment. And so that's what helped me when I got lupus and all the things I went through was, you know, we don't have control always of our environment. We don't have control always of the things that happen to us, but we can look for the music. And when we hear the music, we should dance, we should celebrate, we should sing. And I still live by that to this day.
It's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. My that story touches me because one of my two of my favorite movies of all time is Schindler's List and The Pianist. And they were from Poland, you said?
Yeah, I actually was just in Poland. We just did a tour of all the camps. I did a family tour, all the survivors' children. We all went with my grandmother's youngest brother who turned 92 on the trip. And he took us on a tour through the ghettos and through where the camps were and everything. And I saw Schindler's Factory while I was there.
Oh my God.
That was a heavy trip, man. That was really, really intense.
Oh, I love those two movies. They touch my heart immensely and have shaped me in quite a bit of ways, especially The Pianist, of course, because I love the story, and I love, you know, the story of survival and what he went through. And then of course Schindler's List was, you know, just on another level. I just love those stories. So to be able to go and visit them, I couldn't even imagine what that was like.
Well, you can do it. It's really intense. I mean, for me, I grew up with those stories as just, this is our family history versus, you know, just even tough movies or, you know, museums to visit. Sure. But actually being in Auschwitz and walking down the path where if you went to the left, you went to the gas chamber, or you went to the right and you could live. I mean, I walked that path. I went into the gas chamber. I had to get out of it, you know, but you know, it's on another level to really see how real that is, you know, because I think, you know, we're so used to watching movies and fictions. It's easier for your brain to kind of put that somewhere like, oh, it's just another movie, you know, versus really being there is really something else. I think it's something everyone should do. But man, it took me probably a month to recover from that trip.
I imagine. Yeah. Spiritually, psychologically, it had to be tough.
Especially knowing my kin was there. I mean, my grandfather's entire family was murdered at Auschwitz. So it's
yeah. It's insane. Absolutely ridiculously insane. It's beautiful though, the story of your grandmother. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, and it just shows, I share that story often because I feel like many people feel like they're in that spot, you know, future's uncertain, full of pain, exhausted, not knowing what's next. Yeah. And it's like, you can sink into the darkness there, or you can look for the music, you can look for the light, you know, and she's a great example of that.
Well, she passed it on to you. There's no doubt that she passed it on to you because you, you got it.
I'm just like her. She was very bubbly. She loved to talk to people. Yep. She'll dance. She danced all night at my wedding, even though she was in her 80s and it was like hip hop music. She was spanking my husband's friend's butt when he was dancing. I mean, she was having a great time. she was just a light, and I have her personality very much.
I love it. Well, cool deal. Well, you had mentioned earlier that you had just relocated or settled down. Where are you settled? Where are you located?
I am in Houston, Texas now.
Oh, I thought you were on the East Coast for some reason. I don't know why.
I'm originally from the East Coast, but yeah, I originally grew up in New York and then Pennsylvania. I was in high school in Pennsylvania. I went to college and medical school in Pennsylvania, and then went to California for residency at UCLA Harbor, and then lived in California for 8 years and worked. I was a medical director at a nonprofit out there for a while. And then when I retired from that job to do my current passion, which is, you know, disease reversal, I started out there in California and then really moved to Texas to dedicate myself to that. So I've been in Texas now for 6 years. Houston, only 2 years. Yeah.
Cool, good. We're actually we're in Austin right now, and
we lived there for about 4 years. Loved it.
Yeah. We're actually on the south side of Austin, and actually going to move tomorrow to San Marcos. So
tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. Tomorrow. Yeah. Tomorrow.
Are you guys near Casa de Luz, or is that, because I know there's a place for RVs there? I didn't know.
We are going to be staying. We're at the Austin RV, our Lone Star RV Park right now, and then we'll be going to, it's a Pecan Creek, I believe. It's right by the river, just off, just right there by San Marcos River on exit 205.
Now you're going to have visitors.
I know. I know, right? It's beautiful. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. We're super excited about it. But this weekend, my grandson's birthday party is this weekend, so we're going to be traveling back to Houston, actually the New Caney area, just north east of you guys in Houston. So we'll be there this weekend.
Oh, cool! I love it here.
Yeah, my dad lives in Houston. My kids live in, two of my kids live in Houston. So yeah, we love it there. We lived there in Cypress for a little while, just north of Houston. So
yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Small town. What's the weather like over there in Houston today?
I have not been outside. I've been at my computer seeing clients and patients all day, but here I can check. It's probably in the 90s is what I'm guessing. 95, there we go.
Humidity of about 110%.
I love it. When people say they prefer dry heat, I'm like, not at all. Humidity is so much healthier for you. Like, I don't have to put on lotion. My eyes are hydrated. My nose is hydrated. I feel so much better here. I love it. Absolutely.
You get some tropical fruit growing. I had heard the other day that there's a tropical fruit called Pawpaws. I had never heard of a pawpaw. I didn't. They say that's North America's tropical fruit is a pawpaw. It looks like a little mango. And you cut it open. It has the seeds in it, and it looks beautiful and yellow and orange. It just looks so creamy. But I've never seen one.
I don't know. Yeah, a vegan in search of new fruit. Hey.
I know, right? So what do you got planned today? What are you going to do today? I know you saw some clients, but what's going on in the life of Miss Dr. Brooke Goldner?
You want just to hear my normal life? Okay, so all day long. So I got up this morning. My husband and I, we've dedicated our lives to being together and raising our families as primary. So we get up together. We get the kids ready for school. My husband makes the green smoothies, and we all have our smoothies together in the morning. Then we walk the kids to the bus stop together. Kids go to the bus, and we come back and get ready for work. So for me, that was mostly seeing back-to-back people for wellness consultations. So I see people from all over the world for disease reversal. So let me see. The person today, she was in Canada. I saw someone from Japan. So I see folks from everywhere, which the internet is such a cool thing where, people don't have to pay for a plane ticket. I can literally see them in their own house. So I did that today, talking to you now. And then after we get off the line, I'm going to get on the line with one of my rapid recovery clients. So I have a program where for 4 weeks, people can get unlimited access to my cell phone where they can text me, call me anytime of the day. And I help them with anything going on in their life and getting disease on as fast as possible. So I manage their diet, but also their lifestyle, help them with their sleep, help them with their stress, help them with their marriage, like whatever they need to be in the right mindset emotionally and eating the right foods to be getting their health back. So I'll be checking in with a new person starting today. And then my other people, I do 3 max a month or else I wouldn't be able to manage. So I'll be checking on those folks. And then it's time for band practice for my older son. My kids get off the bus, and both my kids are musicians. So my older son has band practice tonight. So he has a rock band. He's 10. And so he plays electric guitar. So he'll have band practice tonight. Got to take him in. So yeah, it's mommy stuff. It's band practice, dinner, and then on to my own self-care. I like to have a nice long bath at the end of the night, relax, read some fiction, some lighthearted, non-serious stuff to relax at the end of the night, and then out to unconscious world till the next day.
What's your favorite fiction author?
Oh, Tolkien, probably.
Oh yeah. I like Frank Peretti. I don't know if you've heard of Frank Peretti, but he is what I would consider the Stephen King of the Christian fiction. I know that sounds
right there. That's it. Wow.
It's very
Christian horror. Is that what you're saying?
Christian, supernatural, I guess.
Huh, interesting.
Very, very creepy, but has a good message, and his style is very, very, very unique. And I love Stephen King too, but he's probably my favorite author. And,
okay.
But I love Tolkien too, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, you say all time. Yeah, I mean, the ability to create worlds and languages and be able to get yourself lost in a new reality. I love that. Yeah, I figure my job is really serious all day long. I like to get lost in something completely fantastical at nighttime. You know, I always tell people, don't read, you know, articles at night. Don't YouTube about your disease at night. You know, read something relaxing. You know, have some fun. Connect with your joy, and then you can go to sleep a lot easier. You know,
that's right.
Sometimes people even tell me they watch my YouTube channels, they're falling asleep at night. I'm like, that's great that you watch the channel, but that's not really. I want you to go to sleep with something a little lighter. You know?
So that's an incredible story or an incredible day for a mom that's got so much on her plate. I don't know how you do it.
Well, I mean, it's easier when you don't have a commute. You know, I mean, we make it work. I mean, my day is packed, but it's packed with all good things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I absolutely love what I do, and my work is meaningful to me. So it's not work in that sense. I mean, that's another thing my family taught me is you find that thing that you would do for free that you love so much. Yeah. And I do it for free. You know, I don't know if you've ever come to my online classes. I just scheduled the next ones coming up in a couple weeks, and I spend about 10 to 12 hours online teaching all my protocols and answering questions for free every couple months, you know, and I love to give my heart and inspire people because I know that they're not going to get the information any other way. I want to inspire them. I want to educate them, keep them focused so that they can get their health back, because if I don't do it, who will? Right. And it means everything to me. I feel like that's my mission on this planet. I think that's why I'm here, is to do those things. So I don't mind it. I like it. I like what I do. And I like that whenever I'm not working, I can walk out of my office and there's my husband there. And we can spend time together. We do a lot of stuff together. And then, then the bus stop's only at the end of the block. Kids come home and switch right from doctor mode into mommy mode, you know? So yeah, well, it's busy, but it's very rewarding. I'm very happy.
You know, you just mentioned your free courses or your free webinars online. Mm-hmm. I've sat through 2 of them and I love them. I am a human and anatomy and physiology nerd. I have some medical schooling background. Just it was a like a med tech schooling where I was a certified phlebotomist and EKG tech and you know, and that kind of stuff. And I really fell in love with anatomy, physiology, especially. So when you go onto your webinar and you start talking, I am lost. I'm not lost. I'm into it. I'm lost in it. I just absolutely love it. And it just, it makes so much sense. And I love the fact that you can take something that should be simple, but people make so complicated. But even though you do describe it in medical terms and things like that, you give weight to it. And that's what I love. You give weight. You're not just somebody saying, yeah, well, fruits and vegetables are good for you. And I love the fact that you can break it down and it is simple, and you make it simple and you make it fun. I love it. It's one of my favorite things to watch, and that's why I sign up for them every time.
Yeah, thanks. You know, I really want to help the why people out there. You know, I'm a why person. I don't just do what I'm told just because you say, here, do this, right? I'm a scientist. I want to know what's going on. So on the one hand, you know, I only teach results, right? And that's one thing my husband and I are known for, that we don't teach theories. Theories are interesting, but they don't, there's too many of them, and you can argue theories and one person right, the other person right, you know, it's not a debate, but you can't argue with results. So that's primarily what I teach, is the stuff that we know works. But a lot of people want to know, well, why do you think that is? What's going on? And so I teach what we know about food and research, and also what works in real people. And so I do it step by step in a way that is also simple. I mean, I was raised by immigrants. And so my habit has always been to speak simply. And I also think that that's the best thing I can do, even as a physician. You know, to go to medical school, I had to learn everything in Latin. And it's one of the tortures they put us through in medical school, is all the diseases, everything's all in Latin. Right. But I don't speak Latin to my patients. And a lot of doctors do that. I don't think that helps anyone to hear all these names and disorders and stuff and not really understand what's happening. So I've always spent my entire career, even as a medical student, sitting down with people and saying, here's what this disease is, and here's what it means, and here's what these lab values mean, here's what these medications are, here's how they work. And that way people are empowered to make choices. As long as you don't understand what things are or how things work, it's very difficult to make a choice. But when things are really boiled down in a simple way, here's what happens when you eat these foods. Here's what's happening to your body. Here's what happens when you eat these foods that can help heal your body. Here's what's going on inside of you. Now you've got this information where you can really make a choice, rather than me being just another white coat going, don't eat that, it's not good for you.
Right.
It's so much harder. I want to empower people to make choices based on the real information that we have and the results that are out there. Because I know I personally wouldn't just listen to someone, white coat or not. Because especially now I know, I mean, doctors get no training in nutrition. I always tell people never take nutrition advice from a doctor, and they laugh because I'm a doctor, but but none of the information I teach came from medical training. So I don't want people to feel like they just have to choose who they're going to listen to. I want them to make the choices for themselves based on really being educated and empowered to do that.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because I have a family member who tells me that his doctor told him not to eat grapefruit because his grapefruit would affect his blood pressure medicine, and it could kill him. And I said, well, why don't you just stop eating fried chicken, and that way you don't have to take blood pressure medicine and you can eat a grapefruit.
Ta-da!
What are we talking about here, dude?
Yeah. And that happens a lot. You know, I recommend people eat a lot of vegetables, a lot of greens, and they'll say, well, you know, my blood thinner medicine means it gets affected by those. And so my doctor tells me not to eat that. I'm like, that's lazy doctoring, because what your doctor should say is, if you eat those vegetables, which you should, come in so we can take a blood test and we can adjust your medication dosage to go with your diet. Right. Rather than the lazy way of just don't eat those and we don't have to adjust your medicine.
Right.
We don't want to discourage people from eating vegetables. That's only going to make them sicker. So, yeah.
Well, you know, Dr. Brooke, your story is, it's one of my favorites. My first podcast that I listened to, very first podcast I listened to that got me started was with a young lady by the name of Kristen Mock. She interviewed you. And I was a baby vegan. Hadn't been vegan, but maybe a couple of months. Mm-hmm. I heard your podcast and I thought, wow, and your story. And when you talked about your mother and your grandmother, and and we'll get into your story here in a second. I just wanted to kind of tell you this, but your podcast story is what affected me the most and got me hooked on podcasts, for one. And stories of self-healing. Your story of self-healing was absolutely remarkable. And I knew right then that there was something to this diet. I went to this lifestyle because of an affliction that I have, a genetic disorder that I have called familial hypercholesterolemia. Mm-hmm. And I was diagnosed with it at 6. I had atherosclerosis at 6.
Wow.
They thought I had liver cancer. They thought I had a number of things. They didn't know what I had because, 6 years old, 1978, that was kind of unheard of. So I switched to a plant-based diet later on after a health scare and ballooned up to almost 300 pounds. But your story gave credence to that you can heal yourself, that this is possible. And so I just wanted to let you know that first and foremost. And so, yeah, you went from being diagnosed at 16 with lupus nephritis, mm-hmm. stage 4 kidney disease.
Right.
Went through medical school, became a doctor, got married, had 2 children, 2 beautiful children, something that they thought would never happen. Mm-hmm. You have what, 3 books? They're all bestsellers, and you're basically, you're living this life from something and you started off with a disease that was supposed to be incurable. Mm-hmm. Tell us from the beginning. I mean, how to lead up to that point? That is an absolutely beautiful story. You healed yourself on supermarket foods. I can't wait to hear the story. Please start from the beginning.
Absolutely. So, so at 16, I was diagnosed with lupus nephritis. So lupus is an autoimmune disease, and autoimmune diseases are diseases where your body gets so overwhelmed with inflammation that it starts attacking itself. Your inflammatory immune system is supposed to be what responds to threats, right? So you get an infection, and then your inflammatory immune system will activate so that it can go after the virus or the bacteria, kill it, get you back to healthy. Or you bang your knee really hard and you injure it. Your inflammatory immune system sends swelling to the knee to send in all the repair workers to fix the knee, right? And to have it go away. Now, inflammation should happen. It should fix a problem and then it should go away. But unfortunately, Nowadays, people are getting something called chronic inflammation, where the inflammation comes and it never goes away. And that's what becomes chronic disease. Now, nowadays, I know chronic disease is not something that should be a thing. It's kind of like if you got the flu at 16 and you go, yep, I'm in my 50s. I remember when I got the flu at 16, still have it, right? I mean, that just doesn't make sense, right? But that is something that has become a normal, common thing in our society. Normal as in common, not normal as in the way the body wants to be. So at 16, I developed lupus, which is an autoimmune disease where my body started to produce antibodies, not to bacteria and viruses, but instead to my kidney. And so it started to destroy the kidney. And a lot of people with lupus do have it attack their kidney, although some have it in their heart or in their brain or other organs as well. So by the time I was diagnosed, I already had arthritis throughout my body. I had rash across my face, which is very classic for lupus. And I thought that was it. And then I went to the doctor and it turned out I was in stage 4 kidney failure. So at the time I was put on high dose steroids, actually 7 pills in total of different kinds of medicines. And in addition, they put me on chemotherapy to suppress my immune system. So normally chemotherapy is used in cancer, but the side effect is that it also kills the immune system. So they decided to use it on purpose in lupus, kind of like how if your computer stopped working, you would just turn it off and turn it on again and hope that it would, whatever the glitch was, would go away. So that's the theory in using chemotherapy in autoimmune diseases. If we kill the immune system off and then allow it to reboot, maybe the autoimmune disease won't be there, just like it wasn't there before. So, you know, with medicines, it's a very aggressive and destructive way to go when it comes to treating autoimmune disease, right? Is that we have to shut off the immune system. Well, hey, you know, the immune system helps with other things. So it's dangerous and it's difficult, but that's really the only thing we know how to do in medicine. And it's interesting to me is that, you know, this was back in, gosh, the early 90s. And since then, we've developed many new medications for autoimmune disease, but the outcomes have not changed.
Sure.
So it's very interesting. We have billions of dollars in medications currently here and being developed right now, no change in outcomes. And chemotherapy was brand new when I did it. They still use it, but like Selena Gomez, she's a celebrity who
Sure.
had the top rheumatologist in LA apparently, or supposedly, right? And she did chemotherapy, still needed a kidney transplant, still has lupus, right? So for me, I did it for 2 years straight, which is unheard of nowadays. So back then they were still messing with it. I was still an early test subject for it. So they just kept me on it until my immune system finally caved in and the lupus stopped getting worse. And that was 2 years. And now getting chemotherapy has a risk in itself. You know, if you have chemotherapy, you have a higher risk of getting cancer, which is ironic considering it's a cancer treatment. So I had a high risk of getting cancer. They told me it was very likely that I'd be completely infertile from all the poison to my system. It's called cytoxan. You know, it's literally toxic to cells is what it means.
Yeah,
so,
cytoxic, yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, yes,
So, you know, it was, you know, they told me at the time, if you don't take these medicines, you have 6 months to live or end up on dialysis at best. So in my family, you know, like I said, family of immigrants, you do what the doctor says, no questions asked. And I did that, and I'm glad I did. It saved my life, you know. And from 16 to 18, I just studied for my classes and did chemo. You know, that was whenever I felt well enough, I just studied, which for me was very powerful. My mom always kept me very focused on, you know, what are you doing with your life? Lupus was just a thing we had to deal with. It wasn't who I was. And actually, I just convinced my mom to let me interview her when she was visiting me last. It's on YouTube. She was so embarrassed, but everybody loves it. They were like,
I loved it.
but she was amazing, you know, and she just said, I was going to finish high school and I was going to college, so I better get, you know, I keep getting good grades, you know, so I had to plan my studying around my chemo. And I did. And I still graduated in the top 10 of my class. I got a scholarship at Carnegie Mellon. And I actually had my last chemo session 2 weeks before I started college, or a week before I started college. And it was just like freedom on every level, you know, to be studying without chemo, way easier, way more fun. So, and I went into remission at that point. And at that point, what that means is, so remission in autoimmune disease does not mean you are cured in any way. It just means you're currently not dying from your disease. So at that point, my labs were still positive for lupus. And, they have certain antibodies, ANA, dsDNA, all these antibodies for lupus, low complement. I still had all that. I still had protein in my urine, which is abnormal, but I was told I would always have that because of the damage that was done to my kidneys while the lupus was attacking it. My kidney function was okay. I was no longer stage 4. I was stable, but I still had protein loss from the holes and the damage in my kidneys. But I was stable, and that was great. I wasn't dying. I could just focus on college, and I stayed in remission throughout college. I mean, I still would take medicine when I had arthritis, and I would still get migraines, terrible migraines, but I was not in a dying state. I was able to do what I wanted to do. And so for me, I was very happy, and I was very much like my grandmother. Like I was here. I was happy. I was okay. I did it, beat the odds. I'm good. So I decided to continue to listen to my doctors. They told me to avoid stress and always get enough sleep. So I went to medical school, which is not recommended, actually. Although
I don't think that's what they meant.
No, actually, my nephrologist wrote me a letter talking about what an amazing woman I was. I just found it recently. but they did caution me against it. But, one of the things that I learned was you can't let anything stop you from living your dreams. None of us know what is going to happen to us. None of us know what's going to be the next day, right? But we know what we love. We know our passion. So live like you're going to live, right? I mean, you never know. You could be completely healthy and get run over by a truck, right? So we might as well just embrace what we have and do what we love doing. For me, I love science. I love taking care of people. And I just figured maybe I'll go to medical school and I will do some kind of medical research and I'll cure lupus. That would be cool, right? And I actually started out as an MD PhD student. And I just didn't like the research side. I just wanted to treat people. So I dropped out of that in my first year. I just dropped out of it and I just straight MD. I just want to take care of people. I don't want to sit in a lab. It's just not me. And so I went, well, okay, I can still be a rheumatologist. And then I ended up falling in love, of all things, I fell in love with psychiatry, which is an MD for people. But I realized when I was a medical student, I was always observing people and talking to people. And what I noticed is people's ability to heal from illnesses was more dependent on their mental health than on their diagnosis, which was really interesting because nobody was getting nutrition treatment in the hospital. It was meds as usual. The people who are surrounded by family and otherwise positive and happy could go home when everybody thought they weren't even going to live. And then somebody who has an infection that should be getting better will sit in the hospital when they're depressed and isolated. And so I decided actually to go into psychiatry because I realized one of the things I know best that I can help people with is happiness. How do you stay happy? How do you deal with all the pain that happens in your life and not lose your outlook and not lose your positivity? How do you learn to dance even when your knees hurt, right? So I decided that would be the best way to serve people, and I absolutely loved it. But while I was in my medical training, I ended up getting sick again. I was doing my rotations. Back then, we didn't have any of the laws in place we have now about limiting how many hours med students can work. So I ended up working at one point, it was like 100 hours in a week when I was doing my surgery rotation. So it was wearing on me. It was a lot for someone who doesn't have lupus. It was very difficult. And I ended up having, I was getting these red spots in all of my nails, and I started getting double vision, and where the whole world would just break in half into two identical halves. And I would feel really, really dizzy, and I would just hold a wall and wait for the world to come back together into one again. I was like, that's not normal. I don't think that's good. Even though I was only a student, I was pretty sure that wasn't correct. So I actually went to my attendings then, and they just figured I was some kind of hypochondriac med student, which I'm not. I mean, I didn't want anything. I already had diseases I wanted nothing to do with, but they're right. I mean, a lot of med students think they have whatever chapter they're reading. Like I had a roommate in medical school, and she was convinced she had prostate infection for months. And I was like, no, it's not that. But no, I'm joking around. But it's very common for med students to kind of, oh my God, I think I have this. But me, I was like, no thanks, no thanks, not interested.
That was like the equivalent of Googling WebMD for your symptoms back then? Was that like the equivalent of now of Googling WebMD for your symptoms?
Well, no, not exactly. But it's it is in the sense of, sometimes you need a little background to figure out if something's appropriate. But every chapter of my books said people more likely to get this disease are people with lupus. So for me, it was very likely I could get all those things. Like people with lupus often die of heart attacks, you know, but I don't want anything to do with any of this stuff. I just want to live my life.
Sure.
But I ended up collapsing one day. I got MRIs done and I was having mini strokes. So I developed a new lupus antibody that's called an antiphospholipid antibody that creates blood clots. So I was getting double vision because these blood clots were traveling up through my optic nerve. And that's what all the red spots were just clots forming in all my small blood vessels. Right. So that was really tough for me, you know, as optimistic as I am. The one thing I've always relied on heavily is my brain. I figured, okay, I already know I'm probably going to be handicapped by my 40s. I may or may not have to do dialysis, but the brain I got. So even if I'm in a wheelchair, I can be a doctor. You know, I can still do what I do. But when I could lose my brain, that to me would have been losing everything, you know. So that was tough. But you know, they told me, okay, you have to take these injections every day for the rest of your life. So you, as a blood thinner. But I finally came to, well, I'm still here. I still think I was smarter before, but funnier now. But they told me there was no permanent damage. So I don't know. But when you've been sick as long as I was, you develop some dark humor, you know. But I came to, you know what, I'm still here. I didn't die. I didn't have permanent damage to my brain. At that point, I got my first choice of residency at UCLA. And I was like, you know what? Why? There's no reason to fret. I mean, how many people get to live their dreams and achieve what they always wanted to achieve? I'm still a lucky girl. So that's really when I got to the point when everything changed. Was I was really, once again, felt very happy and blessed and lucky in my life. And lupus was just a thing that I barely thought about. I'd take my injection and I'd move on with my day. And I felt so happy with my life. And whenever, at this point, I was in my last semester as a med student, and I had saved all my electives to the end like I did in college so that I could relax. So I was taking like radiology, where you just sit in the dark room, you know, I didn't have to be on my feet in surgery, stuff like that. And so I would actually go out dancing once a week, and I was enjoying myself. And actually that's when I ended up meeting my husband, was right then when I was 2 months away from moving to California and just feeling like the luckiest, happiest person on the planet. I found out that I could get even luckier.
Well, this is one of my favorite parts of your story. So I want you to just take a second and tell us who is Thomas Tadlock, and who is he and what does he mean to you?
Oh goodness! So you just want to see me sob some more? So
I love it. I love hearing about. I do. I love hearing about Thomas and you. Y'all stories.
Well, you're gonna have to interview him so he can cry as much as I do.
Oh, I'd love to. He cracks me up. He is one of the bubbliest guys I've ever come across. So yeah, I would love to.
That's interesting to say. Well, he's definitely extremely passionate, and if you want to make him cry, ask him about me. So we're equal terms there. But yeah, so Thomas, when I met him, he actually went to Carnegie Mellon with me. He was in computer science, and he dated my sorority sister in college. I don't know if I've shared that on a podcast before, but I knew him because he dated one of my sorority sisters. And so I just knew him as like the most gorgeous guy at my college. And so that's who I knew him as. I never really had a conversation with him or anything like that. And we were a nerd school, and he was a nerd with muscles. I mean, it was just very rare.
Right.
And the dreamiest brown eyes I've ever seen. But anyway.
And he's got a smile that'll light up a room. I mean.
Oh my God, his smile is his whole face, right? But anyway, so I knew who he was. But at the time, he had actually was in the midst of switching careers. He was also someone he's always followed his heart. And he always loved fitness. So even though he was in the computer science world, and that's what he went to school at, the top computer science school in the nation, right? And he found he wasn't happy at his work. But he really loved fitness. So he started getting fitness certifications for himself because he's a nerd like me, and he didn't want to just get training or read magazines. He said, if I'm going to learn how to do fitness, I'll learn from the top companies in the world and just train myself. That was his goal, was just train himself. That was it. He wanted knowledge. And part of his training, that certification he did, was NASM, which is a very fancy national one where it's like a lot of physical therapy in it. One of the requirements was you have to train somebody. And so he trained somebody, and he helped one of his computer science buddies, you know, and programming guy, and lost weight. And the guy became so happy and he felt so good. And my husband he's like, oh, I feel joy. This is what I love. I actually love taking care of people. So he was in the midst of changing his career. He had actually, at the time, bought a personal training studio. and he was the #1 personal training studio in Pittsburgh, which is where we lived at the time. He was already on MTV at that time. He was MTV's hottest body at the beach house. You know, TRL. I don't know if anyone here is old enough to know TRL, right? So he was, you know, strutting around on TRL, and so he had created some celebrity for himself. And actually, that's how he ended up training people for MTV. They would call him to, you know, he'd send him to New York to train someone who has to do a music video or something, and they got a pot belly and they need to get a 6-pack in 4 or 5 weeks. Call Thomas. So that was what he became known for. Was he figured out, you know, he applied his scientific analytic mind from computer science to fitness, which I don't know anyone who's ever done that before.
Perfect.
And he looks at cells in a completely different way, that he understands that cells have different components and there's ways to optimize their function or to minimize or hurt their function. And when you apply certain variables to a cell, like different kinds of diet or exercise, they should have the same output. So he was very frustrated that when he went and took all of his classes, he ended up getting a master's degree in this, that his professors would say some diets work for some people, and he'd say that doesn't compute. Computer science, you enter a program and the output always works.
That's
right? It's zeros and ones. Why wouldn't the body work in the same way? We're all made of the same parts. So why wouldn't the parts work properly? So that was driving him absolutely mad. And so he started really studying, how can you really get the same results in every person rather than different results in different people? It doesn't make sense. So he started really analyzing nutrition, because exercise, you know, there's certain things you can do to optimize exercise. And in his book, Miracle Metabolism, he talks about that, about different exercises. You have to apply the right exercise to the right diet, right? Fat loss versus muscle building. But he knew that there must be a way to have a diet that works for everyone, not just some people. And that's what he was really studying. And what he figured out is when you apply certain things like lots of raw vegetables and omega-3 fatty acids and the right amount of water, that people would lose fat very quickly, or they would gain muscle quickly. Now, at the time, he still was using meat for protein, because he thought, you know, he got a master's degree in this, that you need protein to build muscle. So he was running his programs that way, and he was very successful. He wasn't reversing diseases, but he was getting people ripped really fast. I mean, he's got people on the cover of like 3 different muscle mags in the same month. I mean, he's really good at that. So that's what he was known for at the time. So he was a celebrity trainer and getting really great results. And so we fell in love. He was not my trainer. Sometimes people think that I dated my personal trainer. It wasn't that sorted. I picked him up at a bar, you know, but I did. And that story in itself is a funny story, because I was actually on a date with somebody else. But he was very disrespectful, and I don't waste my time on people who are negative or disrespectful. So if someone asked me out and he had a couple drinks and he was very mean, like he didn't like my jokes, he thought I told too many stories, I said, you're not a good fit for me. Called my sorority the ugly girls on campus, and went, all right, so this is done. Thanks for the invitation. Said, but you know what? The date is over because you're extremely disrespectful. But I love this place, so I'm going to stay and dance, and I'm going to have someone else give me a ride back to my car, and nice knowing you. And I just left him there, and he told me he was just kidding and I didn't have a sense of humor. I'm like, all right, I think I have a good sense of humor, but anyway, I'm leaving. So I just was dancing, and I actually forgot I even came with him. The music was wonderful. It was drum and bass. I was dancing, I was jamming, I was meeting friends, laughing, having a great time. And I went to get a glass of water at the bar, and who's sitting there but Thomas? And so I did one of those, don't I know you, you know, and he said, yeah, I know you from Carnegie Mellon. So I sat down to talk to him, and the music disappeared, the bar disappeared. All I remember is the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen, and laughing till my face hurt all night long. And next thing you know, place was closing, and he gave me a ride back to my car, and gave me his card.
Just in case.
Yeah, I gave me his card, you know, I Googled him immediately. And that's how it all started. And I mean, I immediately knew. I was like, that's it. This is, I mean, everything I'd ever wanted in a person. 1, someone who can make me laugh. 2, brilliant person. 3, passionate. He loved what he did. That's always been a big thing for me, because I'm super passionate. I need someone who's passionate as well. And there was something about it. I remember, you know, it was just a matter of weeks before there was nobody else we hung out with. We were just together all the time, like morning, day, and night, just together. Whenever we weren't working, we were together. And I remember, you know, he would hold me at night and we would cry because we just felt so grateful. It was just like an overwhelming feeling. 15 years, I can't, but it was just this beautiful feeling. And, you know, he always said that he felt like he'd been missing me for thousands of years and he found me again. Like it was just an intense, it's still an amazing feeling. I still get lost in his eyes. But so we knew very quickly we wanted to get married. Man, you get me in deep here. And
true soulmate, true soulmate.
Oh, yes. And so, you know, it's about a month after we met and he's talking about getting married because obviously there's no doubt that we are meant to be together. And, you know, I hadn't really talked to him about lupus and I swear I wasn't holding it from him. I just didn't spend much time every day thinking about lupus. I'd wake up, I'd take my medicine, you know, do my shot, and then I just move on with my day. Like it wasn't how I defined myself. And so I wouldn't like meet a cute guy and be like, hey, you know, I have lupus and, you know, like it just wasn't a thing. But, you know, I was moving to California and now he was talking about, he wanted to leave everything behind and follow me there and just start a life with me. Just, you know, just traveling by our hearts going. And I had to say, you know, listen, I have this illness and I can't have your children. I'm probably going to not live a long life. I'm going to be disabled probably by my 40s. And then you're going to have to take care of me while I'm disabled. So, you know, that's not exactly the kind of life somebody would volunteer for at 28 normally. But he barely blinked, you know, he just said, you know, I'd rather have a short life with you than live a lifetime with anybody else. So let's just make it the best damn life you could ever have. And I said, okay, let's do it. And, you know, that's really where everything changed. I mean, you talk about, you know, kismet. If I'd never met him, I might not be alive today because it was at that point, you know, we decided to elope to Maui, as I told you about. And I said, well, I want to look amazing in Maui. And I'd been living in Pittsburgh, and in Pittsburgh, they put French fries on salads. So, I mean, they do. I mean, it's one of the, you know, there's a reason why it's one of the most obese cities in the country. And even though I was vegetarian, I ate cheese and eggs and ranch dressing and processed foods every day. And so I asked him if he would train me. I said, I want to be LA hot. You know, I'm in Pittsburgh now, but I'm going to LA and I want to look great for our wedding, but I don't want to hurt myself with the diet. You know, I had friends who starved themselves for their weddings. I had lupus. I couldn't hurt my body that way. So I asked him to create a plan for me, but I said, I want that rapid results that you get for people, but I won't eat meat because I was very attached to animals as friends. And so even though I ate tons of dairy and eggs, I didn't know. It was weird to be a vegetarian in the late 80s, you know, so I'd never learned about veganism or anything like that. And so he said, well, all the saturated fat and all the cheese and the eggs you eat, that's keeping you overweight. So if you really want to get ripped, you got to get rid of that. And I don't know, let's do tofu instead of meat. Let's just see what happens. And so I went on a diet that was super high in raw vegetables, super high in omega-3 fatty acids, a gallon of water a day. And I was an intern. So I was like going up and down stairs for my exercise, carrying a gallon water jug on my back, you know, and I just did it. You know, I had a plan and I stuck with it. And what was really neat was, I mean, one, it definitely worked for my weight. I did what he said. I was exercising less than I ever had, and I was dropping weight like crazy. I went from a size 11 to a size 3 in 3.5 months. And I looked really good. But on top of that, I never felt that good. Not just the in love part, because that was also awesome, but I didn't start this diet until he moved to California, which is about 6 months later. So it wasn't love alone that cured me, because I still had lupus all this time, nothing changed, right? Because sometimes people ask, they're like, maybe it was love. I'm like, I was in love with lupus for a while. And then, then it changed my diet. And then within the next 3 months, so I finally got my labs done again at the 4-month mark after I changed my diet. And I had realized that within a couple of weeks, I no longer had headaches. I no longer had joint pain. I had tons of energy. I mean, I had so much energy, I could work a 30-hour shift on call and then go to the gym, which people without lupus don't do that. You know, my attending for my psychiatry residency program was worried about me because I was too energetic and happy for a resident. Normally interns are very morose and depressed and low energy. I was like, I'm just happy to be here. But it's weird that you're worried that I'm too happy. I'm not manic. I'm just love my life. But I had a lot of energy, but not an abnormal manic amount, just abnormal for someone who has to work that much. And so I felt so good. I just figured I'm just going to keep doing this, even though I was at my goal weight. I feel great. Now, I had no sense that I possibly could have done anything to the lupus. I had just graduated medical school. So I already knew that disease had nothing to do with diet, or they would have taught me that. So it couldn't have been, so I didn't think my lupus was gone. I just figured I felt really good. And I went and got my labs done. It was right before I left for my wedding. It was 4 months after I changed my diet, and the lupus labs were all negative. I still had a moderate amount of blood clots, which was in the high normal range. You wouldn't normally even treat that unless someone's had strokes. So, I stayed with my blood thinners, but then I got my labs done again a month later because they thought it was an error, because lupus labs don't reverse. You've had lupus for 12 years. You've had kidney failure. You have the strokes. You don't just have your labs just spontaneously become normal. Right. So I went back a month later. I'd gone to my wedding, went on my honeymoon, came back, and now my lupus labs were negative, and the blood clots were gone, and my cholesterol was normal, which I was told was just genetically high. So nobody knows what the heck's going on. We don't know but I just figured, okay, remission. It's a really good remission that I've never heard of with negative labs, but whatever. And I just continued on that way. And I actually kept injecting myself with my blood thinners for a year after I had negative labs. And then I finally asked my rheumatologist, I said, why am I injecting myself when I don't have clots? And he said to me, because you're treating my anxiety, because I'm terrified to take you off medicine. I went, okay, all right. I don't want to be sick, but I also don't want to just take meds so that you don't worry. So I didn't go off my meds for a year. Now, I've been doing disease reversal for a decade now. So I'm used to this now. People with lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or MS or whatever these diseases, their antibodies go away, their symptoms go away, and they are healing, and they can come off their medicines. But I didn't know that. Right. So I finally went off it a year later. And then 4 years later, still feeling phenomenal. I mean, I was in the best shape of my life at that point. Still no sign of symptom of lupus anywhere. That's when I finally decided to try and have a child. Now, I was told that I could die from being pregnant or childbirth, or that I would just have blood clots that would kill off the baby. But I just, at that point, I said, I don't see it. I don't feel it. I just believed in my heart. And I felt Solomon calling to me, my first son. Like, I was dreaming about him. I was holding him in my arms in my dreams. And my husband was like, you're going crazy, because this is weird. And I was like, I have to have a baby. My mom wanted to be my surrogate. My best friend wanted to be my surrogate. And I was just like, I just know I can do this. And I got pregnant. My doctors freaked out. They thought I was going to relapse. They said something bad was going to happen. They sent me to high risk. High risk sent me back, nothing wrong with her. And I ended up having a healthy baby, healthy pregnancy. I had a C-section because my son was butt first. Oh. And nothing happened. I healed quickly from the C-section, was home in a few days, and no lupus. And that's when I finally got it through my thick head. That Western medical knowledge makes it so thick in there. Sometimes there's no room for just, understanding what you're looking at. I finally realized, wait, I don't have lupus anymore. Because I was not only had I had normal labs at that point for 4 years, but I just went through pregnancy and childbirth, and I still had normal labs. I was producing enough milk to make a fat baby of my own and donate to other families. Right. And I still had enormous energy, and I lost all my baby weight within 9 days. So that's when my husband went, okay, first of all, you are going to blow up my boot camp business. Second, because all the women in his boot camps were still trying to lose their baby weight, and their kids were like 18. So that's when we both finally realized, wait a minute, something is different. You don't have lupus. This body that you are in right now, that I was in, was a body that was reacting in real time to whatever I asked it to do. When I got pregnant, I was pregnant. When I gave birth, I gave birth. I produced milk. And then I wasn't pregnant, lost the weight immediately without doing any diet or exercise. I was just sitting on the couch nursing and napping, right? And that's when we realized the only thing we'd ever changed was my diet. So my husband and I decided we need to understand what happened, because this is important. So we went in and we dove into the research. Now, I had never heard of plant-based medicine. I've never heard of plant-based doctors. That was none of that. So we did this all on our own. And we started looking at what happens to cells when you expose them to different kinds of nutrition. And what we discovered was there's a lot of research that already existed, decades of research. T. Colin Campbell had done research showing dairy was a carcinogen back when I was a little kid. But all this stuff never reached the mainstream, and it never reached medical school, that's for sure. So we started to understand that we'd accidentally created the most anti-inflammatory nutrition plan really humanly possible. And so we weeded it down to just the parts that we thought really were responsible. And we started asking people if we could test it on them. I gave a keynote speech for Lupus LA. I offered to run people through what my first attempt at rapid recovery was, to see what would happen. And what we discovered was we could recreate what happened to me even faster. So now I do rapid recovery with people. In 4 weeks, I can get people symptom-free who've been symptomatic for decades, or have a dramatic change in their health. I have a rapid recovery group that's 6 weeks. We're at the 4-week mark, and the majority of the people are symptom-free who have been doing it from day one, right? So it was amazing. So that's what we did. We decided that this was the gift that we were meant to give. And suddenly my whole life made sense. Everything I'd ever been through, even me being attracted to medical school and then psychiatry, because all of changing your diet is psychological. People, you tell people to eat this, they're like, that's great. And then they go eat pizza, right? So knowing how to work it out up here has been the biggest part of me being able to help people transform. But everything up to even falling in love with the person I did has created the life I have now, in which I get to every day help people from all over the world get rid of their diseases, let their bodies heal, and then move on to giving whatever their gift is in the world.
That's incredible that you say that. That it was fortuitous. It was destined that you were to be born to the family you were born to, the immigrants, to be diagnosed with lupus, to have the go to medical school, to switch gears and go into, like you said, psychiatry or psychology, and then of course, and then to meet Thomas, and so on and so forth. It was almost like it was a domino effect of things that had to happen. And
I don't even know, like, if somebody made this into a movie, I don't know if anyone would believe it. Because people don't know, you need to make this a movie. I'm like, it's bizarre to me to this day, because now sitting here in October, it'll be 14 years that I'm lupus free. So 12 years of my life sick, and then 14 years of my life abnormally healthy. I mean, I was told I'd be handicapped in my 40s. I'm on the cover of a fitness magazine in my 40s. Is this like, it seems like my life was in these two separate halves, but really, yes. And I feel like a lot of why that happened is because something I learned very young was to listen to my heart and to follow what I knew was right for myself, and not to listen to this and not listen to other people's chatter. And a lot of what I rehabilitate people with is that. Connecting with their heart, learning how to take care of themselves, learning how to listen to the inner voice, learning how to create boundaries. Like if I didn't have the strength of boundaries to walk away from a bad date, I may never have met Thomas.
Right.
So it's everything that I learned to do. It's part of why I think I got to this point in my life. And I teach everything that I've learned, from learning how to embrace joy and listen for the music, to helping people with relationships, and learning how to create boundaries and take care of themselves emotionally. I use all of that in addition to using the nutrition in order to help people truly heal. Because I met another doctor recently, and he said he'll have a meeting with a patient, tell them to go on a plant-based diet, and if they don't do it, he fires them as a patient because they're just not ready. And that just broke my heart, because I'm like, most people can't just go, here's what to eat, and do it. They need more help. There's a reason that people are eating the wrong foods, and it's not because they really think a cheeseburger is good for them, but it's because they're using that cheeseburger to soothe the stress they had at work, or the negative relationships in their life, or their addictions. And they need more help to be able to let go of all those things and heal from them emotionally, while they're also healing physically, using the right nutrition to get their health back.
I've told the story, but that's absolutely true. I've told the story before. If you don't think that your mind has an amazing amount of control over you, healing illness or whatnot. I'll give you, for instance, my mother-in-law, or our mother, we were told that she was had a gallbladder attack, and we were coming into town. We were out of town, and we were coming into town to check on her. We got there late, was laid up at the house, and was fixing to go to sleep. And I got a phone call from my sister, who was there at the hospital with her, and said that the doctors had discovered that it was not a gallbladder attack, that she had a mass on her pancreas. Mm-hmm. Now, Dr. Brooke, within seconds, I went from feeling fine to complete nausea and had to run to the bathroom and throw up. Mm-hmm. Now, if that isn't a true sign of your brain completely controlling your body, and it can, I had no flu, I had no stomach, I didn't eat anything bad, I didn't have a stomach virus. It was just, I was fine, and then I was throwing up.
I had the same experience with chemotherapy. I knew all the things that could happen, and starting with really my second dose, I mean, they were really strong toxic chemicals, and every time I went in, they would increase the dose. So, because they said if they started with the top dose, it would kill me. So I had to work my way up. And every time I went, as soon as I walked in the hospital, I would start feeling queasy, right? My brain knew it was coming, right? And I start feeling queasy, and then they give that to me, and then I would spend days throwing up, and then it would take me a couple of weeks to even feel like I could eat again because I was scared of throwing up. And then I finally get my energy back around the end of the 3rd week, and then the 4th week I would get chemo again. And I did that for 2 years. I lived that. And then I went to go to my last chemotherapy, right? So I knew this is my last session. And then in a week, I'm going to college. So I was so excited. Normally I was all like down on the morning of chemo, like, here we go again, right? I was so excited. And everything went right. Normally it took them a while to find the vein, found the vein the first try, right? Because when you're stressed, your vessels are smaller and tighter, right? So come in, get the vessel. I feel great. Like, this is the last chemo. So I went in, got the IV set up, watched like a bunch of episodes of Star Trek while I'm waiting because it was like 5 hours, you know? And then I never got, this was the highest dose I'd ever had in 2 years, the highest dose of medicine. I didn't get sick. I didn't get nauseous. I didn't get tired. I was fine. And I was like, are you kidding me? So I learned another lesson there. I learned a lesson right there, how powerful your mood is on even how a poisonous drug can affect your whole body. I was so happy and excited. I didn't even feel it.
Think about your grandma. It reminds me of your grandma coming home on that train.
Yeah, it's just like, but it was just, that also was in my mind when I was in my medical training, you know, that like, wow, if I can help people find their happiness, I can help them have a great quality of life, even if they have a diagnosis that's incurable. Now I realize that, hey, I can do both. I can help them reverse incurable diseases and find happiness together.
That's so great. So going back to you, when you and Thomas first started your dieting, you were trying to get healthy and get into your
I was trying to get fit. It was purely about looking good. I did not think it was going to do anything to my health.
What were you what was your diet? I mean, were y'all doing smoothies then? Because I know you're
no, so we didn't know about smoothies then. That would have been fantastic.
So you were just ingesting greens and
I was eating like 10, 12 cups of raw vegetables a day, like broccoli and cauliflower and carrots and all that stuff. Yeah, I was just eating tons of raw vegetables a day. And I carried a gallon of water jug on my lap. I was using like omega-3 oils, drinking them. I mean, it was not pretty. I would say like I could have bitten through a car door with how strong my jaws were. The veggies I ate. Whereas what we'd realized over time was, you know, initially I would try to get people to do that. I'm like, why won't people just do this? but you know, I just trusted, you know, when Tom said to do this, I did argue at first because he was telling me to eat way more than I normally did. And one of the things I love about this man is he is the only person who's ever really been able to put me in my place. You know, because I will question things and he's got an answer, you know, and I admire that, you know, he's not intimidated.
Right.
He says to me, I was arguing with him about calories in and calories out, all this stuff I learned in medical school. And he said to me, you know, doctors are so hard to train because they think they know everything. And I was like, ooh, you know what? You're right. You're the one with the six-pack. I'm the one trying to lose weight. I'm just going to stop questioning you and I'm just going to listen to what you have to say. And he goes, perfect. And I did that. And guess what? Lost all the weight, did really well. So I love that. He got me. And I do that to people now to this day that, you know, that people question me. I say, I have what you want. I have the health. So just try listening. Just try listening. Try doing what I'm telling you to do. Because some people ask so many questions, they never take action. And I want people to take action. I'm like, all right, just do this thing. You're not going to hurt yourself with vegetables. You know, like it's going to be okay. But I also teach a lot of it in my classes too. And I do the Q&As are usually 2-3 times as long as the class because so many questions. But it's really important at some point to put the questions aside and take the actions, right? But when I would try to help people early on, I'd be like, eat, you know, 10 cups of veggies a day, whatever. And they just, they didn't like it. It was very few people who actually did it. But once we realized the smoothie solution, it became so easy. So we got a Vitamix blender. Actually, my husband got that as a gift from one of his wealthy clients when he was in California. Vitamix blender, can you imagine? And I thought, oh, I already had a blender, so I put it in the garage. And I had like a, you know, a $30 blender on it because I didn't know, you know.
Exactly.
So, yeah, so one day, you know, he pulled it out and he's like, you know, I wonder if we could just take all the veggies and put it in there. So he tried it first and it tasted horrific. It was just disgusting. And he drank it anyway, because for him, it's like utility matters more than anything. And then I said, I think I can work with this. Let me see if I can start making this taste better. And initially we just did vegetables, because vegetables are really what works. It's the high nutrient vegetables, the dark leafy greens, the cruciferous vegetables. Those are what help people heal faster. Fruits just doesn't have the same level of minerals and vitamins and things in it. So at first we didn't do any fruit at all in the program. But we kept trying. And what we found was, if we did a smoothie where the maximum fruit was about 25%, we could get almost the same speed of results as with no fruit at all for most people. Very rarely do I have to say to someone, take the fruit out and let's see. For most people, they can do it that way. And so we started teaching people the smoothies. And what we found was people will do smoothies. Even people who don't like vegetables, they will pile the smoothie, the stuff into their blender and drink it, put a straw in it, and they'll drink it.
Yeah.
And so it's wonderful, because I have a lot of clients who've never eaten vegetables in their life, unless it was like, a pickle on their burger. And so now what we found is, what we teach people is even adding the smoothie to your life, get used to all those nutrients and start to crowd out some of the bad food, rather than telling people right off the bat, you can't have any of the stuff you love anymore. Let's introduce what you're missing. Let's introduce you to how good it feels to be nourished. And we found we could do all the greens. We can get like 8 cups of greens in there and still have it taste good. We can get in, and then you use the fruit to make it taste good. That little bit of fruit, spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down, right? We can get a half cup of flax or chia seeds in there, or if you're already healthy, like a handful. And then we use water, and boom, we've got the most important parts of recovery right there. The water intake, the omega-3s, and the greens. Literally just sip on that while you're working all day, and you can dramatically change your health. So it's really been a great way for us to transform lives. And we're grateful for them, because now we have people all over the world who are hooked on these smoothies and getting healthier that never would have put their fork into a salad. So, oh, you're one of them?
They're my favorite. And of course I mix them all up, and I even add cacao powder to some. I do a one with blueberries, the green power green smoothie, and I do it with cacao powder too. I love them. I absolutely love them. I've got my spinach in the refrigerator. I got my flax seeds in the cabinet, and I got my bananas that are ripening over there on the counter, and some in the freezer. So I love them. You have the
glow too. You can tell when someone's doing them, because that beta carotene gives you that nice like glow to your skin. Sometimes people get nervous about it. They're like, I look kind of orangey yellow. I'm like, yes, that's healthy. You're supposed to have some color to your skin.
That's what it's supposed to do. That's what it's supposed to do. And the other day, we had watched your webinar, and I didn't think about it. I went out and I bought a bag of broccoli and some little cups of guacamole, or avocado. It was little packs of avocado guacamole, and I sat and dipped it, and that was the best. It was so delicious. Oh, it was so beautiful.
Oh, I love that snack.
I love it.
People are afraid of raw broccoli. I love it because the broccoli can hold on to all the guacamole very well.
The other night I eat mostly raw. I mean, I eat raw fruits and vegetables, and we made a soup, a creamy broccoli soup, with cashews, and it was a little high in fat. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, this is one of the things that we splurge on. But anyway, we blended the broccoli up, and I got a Vitamix too, and so it gets it nice and warm. We didn't overdo it, but just got it nice and warm. And Angie doesn't really like the broccoli raw that much, but I do. And I chopped up some of that broccoli and put it inside the soup, and I promise you couldn't tell. I couldn't. It tasted like the broccoli was cooked. And it was
you have to send me that recipe now, because that sounds amazing. I used to, like, back in my unhealthy days, broccoli cream soup, that was a great snack, right? So doing that, and nuts are not bad for you if you're already healthy. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with getting some nuts as long as you're getting your omega-3.
Right. And like I said, it's something that we very seldom do. It's just you get a hankering for it, and you think, I just want something kind of warm and creamy, and so nutritional yeast and cashews and broccoli, oh dude, you can rock it.
All right, well, you have to send me the recipe now.
I sure will.
I have all those ingredients, so.
So yeah, the you mentioned the 4-week rapid recovery program and the 6-week group program. What does each of those entail?
So they're actually the same program. It's just the intensity of the contact with me. So what rapid recovery is, it's a period of either 4 weeks or 6 weeks where you're only eating the most nourishing foods that actually stimulate your body to repair itself, right? So focusing on the right raw foods, not any raw foods, but the right raw foods, omega-3s, water, all that intake. And I push people to continue to increase their intake and maximize their results, but I also help them deal with any issues that come up. Gut issues, bloating, some people get loose stool, some people get constipated, you know, all these different things. Some people discover they have food sensitivities they didn't know. So I watch them every single day during rapid recovery. So every day they have to submit to me this 1-page journal they fill out, it takes about 5 minutes, that has everything they ate, but also a summary of all their symptoms. I know how long they slept and what their stress level is, and you know, their mood and all of that kind of stuff, all their symptoms. And every day I go over that and then give them feedback to help them with the next day. So if their mood is low, I'm going to focus on self-care and things to help them with their mood. If their nutrition wasn't what I want it to be, I'm going to tell them how to do that. So, so they get that feedback every day. In addition, they can ask unlimited questions for support all day long, every day. So the 4-week rapid recovery program, that, as I said, that is exclusive access to me. So for 4 weeks, every day, I check your journal, but then we can get on the phone, we can text, whatever people like. Nowadays, a lot of people prefer texting. Some people want to get on the phone or FaceTime as much as they need to every day to make sure that they get as healthy as humanly possible in that period of time. And 4 weeks is really enough time to overcome detox, overcome addictive behavior, and start really getting a lot of reversal of their symptoms. Some people completely reverse it in 4 weeks, and others just have made a dramatic change in their health in that period of time. And then I help them figure out what their next steps are. So based on what their result is, I help them decide what they're going to do next. So the rapid recovery group is the same model, but what I found was, you know, I can only do 4-week program with like 2, max 3 people a month, because my phone would never stop. Like I can't do that. So that became an issue for people who wanted to get in. There was just so many people wanting to get in. So we decided to create, my husband decided to do it with me because I needed his help. There's no way I can do it by myself, was to create a rapid recovery group. And so we do that through a secret Facebook group. So Facebook lets you create these secret groups. It's not like a closed group. The secret one's like nobody can see it even exists. It works like Facebook, but you can't search for it. You can't find it. We have to put you in there manually ourselves. Right. And it's great because everyone knows that interface, or most people do. And so we use that interface, and it's very organized though. And so they have a place where they submit their journals every day for feedback on how they did and what to do the next day. And then another section for unlimited questions for anything they need help with. And whenever my husband and I are not working with someone or talking to someone, we jump into the group to answer questions, and we'll come in live and process people if they need to, whatever they need. We tell them, whatever you need, you tell us. And then we have weekly meetings with the whole group. So instead of one-on-one getting on the phone whenever you want, we do a weekly meeting with the whole group, and we stay on until everybody, you know, gets what they need. And people call it like their weekly sermons, because we get them really inspired and motivated and get them excited for the next week and keep people on track. So it's really, you know, it's the whatever it takes programs, because I just realized that unlike the doc who fires people when they don't listen, when I listened, I realized people just need a hand to hold to get through the hard parts, to get through the self-sabotage, to get through the depression, to get through the cravings and withdrawal, and to really understand how to do it right. And if I hold their hand, then literally within a month to month and a half, they can have a dramatically different life than they have when they came in. And that's why, I mean, if you go on my website, people will send in videos, and they literally will say, like, I'm not the same person in 6 weeks. I mean, I don't feel stressed the same way. My pain is gone. My labs have reverted. It's just a beautiful thing, and it's something we love to do. We love to give and take care of people.
Yeah. It's amazing when that weight is lifted. You know, for 43, 44 years of my life. Well, actually, up to when I was 6 years old, I was told that I would literally be lucky to live to 16 without having a heart attack.
Oh my God.
So yeah, my cholesterol, it was ridiculous. It was bad. But so growing up all that time, I was waiting for it to happen. And after watching my dad, he had a heart attack, and then my mother passed away from pancreatic cancer, and then I had a heart scare. You know, when I switched over to a plant-based diet, and within 4 weeks my cholesterol dropped to 147. I was at 300 when I had my heart incident. It wasn't an attack. It wasn't an incident. It was an incident. I'm sorry. They told me I need to go see a doctor, a cardiologist, and get put on statins and whatnot. So, but when my cholesterol dropped that dramatically, the weight just lifted. It was an oppression that I had been feeling all my life, and then I didn't have to worry about it anymore. And so I don't even think about it. The thought doesn't even come in my brain.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's so that psychological part of it is so important. And somebody explained to me the other day is life is like a wheel, and each spoke represents something, whether it's sleep, love, diet, exercise, so on and so forth. And if one of those spokes are tweaked or turned or broken, and enough of them get broken, you're out of balance. And it's so important. It's so important.
100%.
That's very true what you said. Absolutely. And I've heard you talk about hyper-nourishment before, and I love that word. Hyper meaning, high, and then nourishment, of course. Why is hyper-nourishment so important, but why is it so easily overlooked? I mean, how is it it's so important, but it's so overlooked? How is that? How does that happen?
There's nourishment, right? Nourishment means you have the right amount of nutrition in your body for your body to function properly. But when people have been malnourished their entire lives, like I was just reading an article about a teenager that's only ever eaten burgers and processed food, who's now blind and deaf, and they found out that he's normal weight but completely malnourished, right?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yes, and so in our society, and in the U.S. and Canada and other countries that I'm talking to every day, people are overweight and malnourished, or even normal weight and malnourished. So when I talk about hypernourishment, what I'm doing is I'm oversupplying nutrients to the body on a super high level to accelerate the body's ability to repair itself. Because if you just get better nourishment, you'll feel a little better, but we don't get rapid disease reversal. So when we hypernourish, where we go, hey, let's give more than the body needs in a day of all the most essential nutrients, the omega-3s, the high nutrient greens, the water, all that stuff. We give more than we need, then anything left over is just gonna get pooped and peed out, no problem. It's not like taking too much vitamins. If you're taking pills, you can overdose on a vitamin pill, but not on the foods. So we oversupply, hypersupply those to make sure that the cells have what they need all day long to work on cellular repair. And that's why people get better so quickly, rather than that slow and steady, like just eat a little bit better, have a little side salad. No, let's eat a pound of salad, just shove it into the blender and drink it down. The more you do, the faster you get better. And it was interesting. I was talking to Michael Greger the other day, and we were chatting because early on when we met, he had said, I don't know if I'm really on board with smoothies. I think people should chew their food. And I'm like, based on what though? I mean, is that just a theory you have, or have you tested chewing versus blending? And of course, nobody who thinks blending is bad has ever tested that. But it was just a theory I had. I said, well, I'm seeing amazing results. And so as long as it works, that's what we're going to do. Okay. So then I saw him the following year at the same conference, and he said, I have people coming up to me all over the world telling me your smoothies saved their life. Tell me more about the smoothies now. So now he's interested. Yeah. So I told him, so I was talking to him about them, and he goes, how do you think they work so well? I said, people are getting in a pound and a half of greens a day. He goes, whoa, that's really good. That's a lot. Wow, you're getting people to eat a lot of vegetables. I said, yeah, I am. Next thing you know, he has a video out now making his favorite green smoothie. So I was like, more power to you. No mention in the video, but it's really been a phenomenal way to get people healthier faster. And if you're trying to just get people to eat more veggies who don't like veggies, that is very difficult to do. They already don't like them. Now I'm telling them to eat them raw. Like, raw broccoli, oh my God, I'm terrified. But something that tastes like bananas and pineapple, they'll do it, So yeah, hypernourishment has been extremely effective. And that's why, I mean, you don't see anyone who's got such rapid results that we do. And we've been doing this now. So this rapid recovery group is 30 people at a time. I've been doing this group for 2 years now. So I'm churning out results like nobody else, because this is all I do, is just work with people and help them recover their health. And it's amazing how well it works. That's why, I started off this interview talking about, what if you got the flu at 16 and you never recovered, right? Well, it's kind of apropos to come back to that now, that literally having chronic disease like lupus or autoimmune disease or even high cholesterol, other things, that's literally the same thing, that your body's just waiting to get over it. It just needs the right tools. And hyper-nourishment is a way that we can supply those tools to the body, and then the body does it itself. And within a matter of weeks to months, all of a sudden you just recover like it never happened. It's amazing.
It is. It is. You know, I've somebody asked me the other day, why do I eat raw, and what's the difference between raw and a standard vegan diet? And I said, well, when I eat raw, I don't have indigestion. I don't have gas. My joints don't hurt. I feel great. And I personally have an addiction to food, and cooked food is like a trigger for me. I joke sometimes that I can go from steamed broccoli and rice to a Taco Bell like that. And that's an extreme, of course, but
no, I hear what you're saying though. Because I have, when people go off the raw diet too quickly, I always tell them, stay with it until your symptoms are gone. Because as soon as you try cooked food again, you're not going to want to go back to it. And it really does. The addiction hits quickly. It
does. And it's amazing how many people are addicted to food and probably don't even know it. They don't even put two and two together and think about it.
No, they say they love it instead.
Yeah, they do. They love it, or it's mine. When you start calling your food mine, there's an issue you might want to think about.
It's just one of those things. I always tell people, when you're a little bit too passionate about the food, like when people are like, I love cheese. Like, whoa, that's intense. That's not love. That is addiction, right? Addiction. I mean, that is how people talk about their favorite, cocktail or their favorite drug, their cocaine or their weed or something, that you don't. And first of all, it's an abusive relationship anyway. If cheese does not love you back, it's an addiction. I have that addiction, I know. And the funny thing is, outside of the addiction now, I think cheese is nauseating. It smells bad. It's disgusting. But when I was addicted to it, it was the thing I looked forward to the most in the day. So I think most people don't realize how much their addictions are an issue. Often not until they're doing something like my rapid recovery group. I'm in week 4 of one now, but I have another one starting at the end of the month. And I already know, I have to get myself ready, because in the last 2 weeks, it's fun. Everyone's feeling better. Pain's gone. They're used to the diet. No problem. But when we start again, September 28th, here we go again. And people who are thinking, oh, no problem. Oh my God. All of a sudden they're withdrawal. They're cranky. Why do I need to do this? I'm like, hey, remember why you did this? Trying to keep, it's all, I have to give so much support in the first 2 weeks, because the cravings actually intensify for the first 2 weeks. Your brain's trying to talk you out of it. And if I can get people past the 2-week mark, I know they'll keep going. But if I don't get them past the 2-week mark, they're going to quit. And most people on their own who try to do something like a raw diet will quit at exactly the 2-week mark.
Right. That's right. We talked earlier about your books. You have one book called Goodbye Lupus, and it's How to Heal with Supermarket Food. Is that right?
Goodbye Lupus, how a doctor reversed your disease with supermarket food, right?
Yes. And then your follow-up book, I just read, I hope this is true, but I just read that it was a #1 bestseller.
Yeah.
Goodbye Autoimmune Diseases?
Yeah, Goodbye Autoimmune Disease. Yeah, so it went bestseller on its first day out, just like Goodbye Lupus did.
Yes.
Yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah, I'm very happy. What matters most to me is that if people are buying it and they're reading it, then maybe they're going to actually act on it. I don't want it to be shelf help. I want it to be self-help. I want people to read it, and I want them to take back their health.
I'll give you a I don't know if you noticed this or not, but Angie and I, we go to thrift stores, and we always go to half price books stores and things like that. And I don't know if you've ever been to those places or noticed this, but very seldom, almost never, do I see vegan books or books like yours back on the shelf. Almost nobody turns them back in. They keep those. Now you'll see all the other books, but I don't see them. So that's got to be encouraging.
That's interesting. I just donated some not that long ago.
Well, tell me where so I can go get them.
We need to get some of these into the Goodwill. But yeah. Well, I hope so. I really wanted to make a difference for people. I mean, I pour my heart into that, because I figure, if I can just give it to people, like, here it is. There are people who do it. I mean, I get messages from people. I just found a YouTuber who tagged me on Instagram, and I watched her YouTube, and she's been on my diet for a year, and in the first 6 weeks got rid of all of her symptoms and meds for lupus. You know, so when people do it, it works great. The groups and things I do are for the people who don't just do it. They read it and go, I don't think I can do it. So.
Well, I like I said before, I have a couple of videos on YouTube. It's just starting, it's a baby channel, and I have one video where I tell my story and how I came to be and my journey and everything. And your name is mentioned, and your picture pops up in the video. I hope you don't mind. I said, hey,
of course.
You know, Dr. Brooke is the queen. You're one of my favorite people on the planet, and I just absolutely love you. Absolutely love what you do. Well, I can't thank you enough. I cannot thank you enough for agreeing to this. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of fun. Where would people need to go to come find you online?
All right, to find me online. So it depends. If you're looking for just information, you want to hear from me, see what I'm up to. I'm very active on social media. It's a great way to connect with people. So I'm at Goodbye Lupus on both Facebook and Instagram, and at Vegan Medical Doc on Twitter. And then YouTube, I'm putting out new videos every day. If you look for Brooke Goldner or Goodbye Lupus, you can find me on YouTube as well. And so I'm always putting out videos. I try to do them every single day on YouTube as well. Now, if you're looking to actually get my help because you want to do rapid recovery with me, you're getting an appointment, you just go to goodbyelupus.com. And if you go to goodbyelupus.com, you'll see there's work with Dr. Goldner, and there's ways that people can work with me. And also I have my classes coming up. So if you're just like, wow, I want to learn all this stuff, I want to dig in and get the information, you want to be able to do the Q&A with me, September 28th. I don't know when this is going to come out, but September 28th is my next set of classes. And if this is after September 28th, don't worry, go to goodbyelupus.com and you'll get to see whenever the next classes are. They'll always be posted on my website whenever the next classes are. And I teach all 6 steps to healing with supermarket foods, the entire contents of Goodbye Lupus. And I teach my case studies, dozens and dozens of case studies of people reversing disease. And I always stay on the line to answer questions to make sure that people really feel like they get all the information they need to get started. So that'll be coming up soon as well. So lots of stuff happening, lots of different ways to reach me.
Good deal. Good deal. So let's see, today is the 4th,
September.
September the 4th.
And I'm sorry, September 28th is when my next rapid recovery group starts. My next classes are September 16th. September 16th, I've got those 2 dates that are solid in my head. September 16th is my next set of classes.
Okay, so good deal. So let's see, I had one release, Plant-Based Gabriel. I did an interview with Plant-Based Gabriel. I don't know if you know him. Great story. Great Gabriel Miller. Super story. Oh my gosh. I released his today, and then next week I'm releasing Raw Vegan Doctor, which is Dr. Areli. She's next week, which would be the 11th, I'm thinking, and then the following week would be the 18th. So, but I'll promote it though. I'll promote it for sure.
Cool. Yeah, after that it'll be sometime in December would be the next classes, because I usually teach the classes when I'm on break between the groups, because it's a huge amount of work and time, and I'm up late, so doing all my Q&As. But one way or another, and actually what we've just developed is for people who don't want to wait for the classes, we now have an option where people can just download them. They can buy them and download them if they don't want to wait for the free version. So people can always do that as well. But one way or another, there's lots of different ways for people to find me or participate. And of course, all the information is also in the books as well. But people do love coming to the classes, and especially being able to do the Q&As with me.
The Q&As and the success stories. Oh my gosh, they're great. We stayed up, I think we stayed up till midnight one night listening to the Q&As. I'm
usually up till 1. I started at 6 p.m. Central Time, and the class is 2 hours. That class is the longest one, is 2 hours, and the Q&A still, because more and more people are coming now. Yeah. So there's thousands of people showing up, and then they're putting their questions in. And I always say, I'm going to keep answering as long as there's still people waiting. And so usually even at 5 hours into it of Q&A, there's still a couple hundred people hanging out. And I'm like, all right, if you're still here, I'm still here. Although one time I had somebody pop in and go, oh my God, I fell asleep and came back and you're still here.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So she didn't fall asleep during the class, but it was like 1 in the morning, and that's what really, that just shows me people want to heal, they want to get better. And as long as they're still committed and they're still there, that I have the energy to keep going too as well. So I love doing that. I love everyone to show up and be there with me.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Again, I thank you. I thank you, young lady. for taking your time with me. You're a treasure. Hopefully, maybe I could get Mr. Thomas on, maybe both of y'all together, interview y'all together, and we can get you both.
Absolutely. And Thomas loves to do this stuff. He's great. You just let him know that I told him, and he'll come. I'll give you his number after the fact. He would love to share. And thank you. I mean, really, if it wasn't for you and folks like you who are spreading the word and doing these kind of interviews, it'd be harder for people like me to get our message out there. So I appreciate it. Every interview I've ever done, including, like, I think you talked about Nurse Kristen. I was one of her first interviews. And, you know, she told me that she wanted to start this whole thing, and she asked if I would do an interview. And now she's got all of these interviews and podcasts, right? But even when I've been multiple people's first or second interview, and I always say yes, because you never know who's going to listen and need that message. And I've had people where I was their first interview or second interview, and people have found me through them, you know, and they've been able to get their health back. So it means a lot. The work that you're doing is really important.
I appreciate you. I do. More than you know, young lady. Well, you have a good day and enjoy yourself.
Thank you. You have a great day too. It was really great getting to hang out with you.
Hey there, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast video as much as I did enjoy putting it on. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below. There's a little bell. Just hit that little rascal. That way it gives you any kind of notification when a new video pops up. So, yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it, and have a great week. And don't forget, if you're going to be a statistic, please be a good one. Good choices equal good consequences. All right? Love y'all. Peace out.